Hey guys, just wanted to make a really quick care and husbandry guide on the Scolopendra polymorpha, which is my only centipede which I own at the moment. Common name is the tiger centipede or the Sonoran desert centipede. Um, Everything I've read online says they're terrestrial, but in my personal experience keeping them, I've got two specimens. Um, I think that they both prefer the fossorial lifestyle. They like their conditions and humidity extremely dry, temperatures ranging from 70 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit, which is what, like 25 degrees Celsius, something like that. Room temperature is absolutely fine. Temperament, just like any centipede, really, is nervous and they can be defensive as well. They can grow up to my biggest specimen is, I would say she's 5.5 inches, which is what, like, she's over 15 centimeters, or she's maybe like 12 centimeters, something like that. Um, I feed any regularly available insect feeders. So you go to the shop, you go to Pets at Home, Petco, wherever you are, and they sell mealworms, crickets, anything like that. I mainly feed um, mealworms and superworms, and when they're larger, you could feed them dubia roaches and locusts as well. So the substrate I have mine on, both of them, is a mix of peat moss, sphagnum moss, and like that's like 1 part and then 3 parts sand. So yeah, so they could be found in the Sonoran Desert in America, the southwestern United States. Wouldn't be surprised if they're indigenous to northern Mexico and neighboring states as well. So what, Nevada, Arizona, Texas, and then maybe even some other states as well. So right, so geographic variation. This can this can affect how they look and what they're named as well. Um, so, for example, the Sonora Desert centipede could be the same species as a Texas tiger centipede, but and the Arizona blue centipede. It's the same species, but because of their locale and where they're found, it changes what they're commonly known as. So also in the naming scheme, there's always a reference to the coloration, locale, or striping, banding, other patterns on them. Um, I read online that they inhibit grasslands and forest, which I find hard to believe. I think they're mostly probably a desert fossorial species living under cracks in rocks and making their own little burrows in the dry desert soil. So yeah, we've already mentioned their substrate, but in the wild, they'll be found under natural and unnatural debris, so rocks, signs, car tires, just random stuff left out by people. In captivity, it's very likely that they'll be buried, fossorial, as already mentioned. So giving them enough substrate, 2 to 3 inches, enough for them to, create burrows, is advised. Although you could just give them a hide and give them less substrate, but I prefer to give them, as you can see from my enclosure, more substrate and not really any hides available. Although I've got that little toy car. Um, right. So now we're talking about conditions and humidity, temperature. You can try to imitate what it would be in the wild with all species that you keep in your animal room. So, for example, if you keep a species from Africa, you could try. I don't do this with many of my species, I just stick to the regular requirements. Although, this is just like an enrichment idea or something that you could do for your animal room. Um, if you wanted to, and you could match it to their natural wet and dry seasons. Um, that would be really cool, and then water would mist accordingly. This isn't necessary at all, it's just an idea I had while writing the script for this video. Now, let's talk about humidity for centipedes. It's absolutely crucial for any centipede. Um, if their howl's too dry, they can dry out because they basically lose moisture just from breathing. And if their howl's too moist, they can suffer from what's known as mycosis. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but basically they all centipedes have really poor moisture retention, so they leak moisture from their skin, basically. That's just like the simple way of understanding it. So basically, they lack the ability to seal their are they called spiracles, which leads to water just leaking from their bodies. So I read online that ventilation is the best way to avoid uh, problems or issues from humidity. So good ventilation is more important than humidity. If you provide a large water bowl, as you can see, I've got a large water dish in my enclosure. The pedes, they can, if they want to, if they're really struggling for water, can come out the burrow and drink. I missed my enclosure probably once a month, adding some moisture. Again, probably once a month, because they are desert species. They're not going to be uh, coming across that much moisture in the wild. So yeah, I put even less moisture with this particular species, the Scolopendra polymorpha, than I would with other centipedes. But other centipedes should always be, you should always put less moisture in with centipedes than you do with your tarantulas and your scorpions, basically. Their temperament, just the same as all inverts, really. They can be nervous, they can be defensive. Not to be confused with aggression. Handling, just like with any invert, so just like with all my tarantulas, scorpions, and my centipedes, is not recommended. You can injure yourself, you can injure the specimen. It's just not really worth it. If you want to do it, do it. It's all on you, really. Right, guys, so as you can see, we're now onto the feeding clips that I've recorded. I've only got a few feeding clips, unfortunately, because I very rarely get to see my peds eat. This is very cool. You can see the fang go in, and I think you can see the fang go in another clip that I have coming up as well. Anyway, so my centipedes mainly eat mealworms. This is occasionally supplemented with superworms, crickets, and locusts. Dubia roaches are they're not very available in the UK, put it that way. I know that larger specimens can be fed pinkies. Not only specimens, larger species, so the giant centipedes can be fed pinkies, although this is never recommended, especially not for specimens of this size, or maybe this species in general, unless they're really small pinkies. Even then, not recommended, not necessary. They don't need it. They don't need to eat that to get their nutrients. Peds can receive all their nutrients from insects and inverts. I've only seen my peds eat a handful of times, which is why it's a real treat to enjoy them and watch them eating when I get to, or when I catch them doing so. I usually throw in a mealworm or a superworm once every 2 to 3 weeks, and they disappear, so obviously they're eaten. So I know some keepers feed fruit to their centipedes as well, which you can see actually in this clip. That is a bit of apple next to her legs. I've tried this very many times unsuccessfully each time. As you can see, no interest in the fruit there. Um, I've read a report that centipedes that do eat fruit in captivity live longer and grow larger, but of course, do your own research and supplement your research into your husbandry accordingly. The key to really good pet nutrition, however, is good feeder nutrition. So feeding your feeder insects regular fruit and veg, high in water content, as well as constant access to cereals, brands, and oatmeal is essential. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Hopefully you've been informed. Hopefully you learned something new, and yeah, subscribe for more.